All right, this is the Big Daddy Show. He's the rapper Big Pooh. And our guest today, back for another visit, is Troy Haliburton from the Washington City paper. Troy, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Doug and Big Pooh. How you guys doing today?
Doing good. Happy belated.
I appreciate that, man. Like I said, I just got this nice little birthday romper set here. Got to throw my bucket hat on. I'm in vacation mode all day right now.
The cherry blossoms must be out.
Exactly, and I will not let the Washington Wizards constantly losing bring down my mood.
Oh my God. You can't at this point. You can't at this point.
So, that brings up a good point that I was thinking about before we got started today. What does, not just COVID, but covering a team that's not doing very well, how you go about like just not making it seem miserable all the time?
Yeah, I think that there's an element that is very demoralizing when you have a team that, is not winning a lot of games. Like it's tough, like because I mean, a lot of the players they're dejected after these games, and it even before COVID, when you had to go into the locker room, at least you could like read body language, and you could kind of talk to the 15th man who didn't play and be like, oh well, what did you see from this situation, or what was the call in the huddle? And different things of that nature. But with the COVID and with them doing everything over Zoom, I mean, it's almost impossible to kind of get the full scope of what's going on with the team because the players aren't willing to talk. And then after some of these losses, we've already seen guys like Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, they'll just head on out, go home, and they'll do the media availability the next day. So it has become increasingly difficult to cover an NBA team during this time period.
Troy, now obviously you haven't been able to be around them this year, but you've been around almost pretty much the same team, aside from Russell Westbrook in previous seasons. In your opinion, like what do you see do you think it's an atmosphere in there of one of like, okay, sorry guys, we trying to get better, or in your opinion, do you think it's very a different type of frustration being that they had expectations, at least for the play-in spot?
What's crazy? I feel like that the delusion has reached every point of the organization because from everything that I have talked to people who are connected to the team on a daily basis, the spirits are high. Like,
wow.
That it's like no deal. Not that it's no big deal that they're losing, but like they feel good. I think that comes with a little bit of the positivity that Russell Westbrook has brought to the team. I think that he just kind of has this nature where he just kind of puts his hard hat on every day and comes to work. And I do believe that some of that nature has seeped through to some of his teammates, especially the younger guys, especially a guy like Rui Hachimura, who Russell Westbrook has kind of taken under his wing. I know, they're both Jordan brand ambassadors, and Rui now calls Russell his senpai, which means mentor in Japanese. So and surprisingly, like I said, from the people that I have talked to who are around this team on a daily basis, that the morale is not as low as I think that people, Wizards fans would probably think.
Is Rui, does he have the most star potential after you take out, the two big names? Is he who they're hoping has the highest ceiling?
I think that Rui definitely has the highest ceiling because of, number one, his physical tools, with him being a 6'8" wing player. And, he has a long wingspan. He's got big hands for his size. And I think that, what the Wizards always believed was the fact that because he started playing basketball so late, they kind of view him as this kind of ball of clay that they can mold, that, he hasn't built up a lot of bad habits that a lot of kids who come up in the AAU culture have. And I think that when Wizards fans looked at the drafting of Rui 2 years ago, I know a lot of people wanted Cam Reddish, who was a much higher touted prospect when he was coming out of high school. But I don't think that there's anybody out there now who doesn't think that the Wizards made the right decision by drafting Rui over a guy like Reddish. And that has to do a lot with him really showing a lot more than what his initial kind of scouting report was. When he first came in, people thought that he was just a mid-range shooter and that he would really not be able to develop further parts of his game. But I mean, he has shown a defensive versatility that I think it really excites me more than anything about his prospect as a potential star. And he has shown the ability with his three-point shot that when he gets consistent looks and he's able to take those shots with confidence, that they're going to go in a lot more than even he realizes.
Let's go to last year's first round pick, Denny Avdia. I've last week, I think it was, I went on Twitter to defend Avdia's development thus far. People already ready to call him a bust. And my thing was he wasn't the skill set he had in Europe. That's not what we're seeing for the most part. They turned him into a spot up shooter when he was a secondary playmaker. Do you see his in Scott Brooks' tradition? Do you see his confidence being crushed by the end of the season, or him being able to make it out of this freshman slump he's in?
I think that we've witnessed this exact movie, 2 previous times under the Scott Brooks tenure as the Wizards head coach, and Thomas Satoransky and Troy Brown, where you have young developing prospects who their skill sets involve them having the ball in their hands. And Scott Brooks has kind of relegated them to that. Just no, you just stand in the corner and wait to shoot when the ball comes to you. And that's not their games. Like, these aren't like Otto Porter, type of 3-and-D spot up shooter guy. They're trying to turn every third guy into Otto Porter. And that's just not what these guys' skill set were. And I think that we've seen that Thomas Satoransky and Troy Brown both, when they have gotten into fresh situations, that they can do things with the ball in their hands. And I think that Denny Avdia he's just falling right in line with the same story as those other 2 prospects. He is a player, like you said, from what we saw from the scouting report, from everything that he did in Europe. He's a guy who excels with the ball in his hand, playmaking, creating for others, having nifty passing skills. He's a guy, I think that he has shown that he's a versatile defender with the Wizards, but he's not just a stand in the corner, spot up shooter. And I think as long as he's on a team where Scott Brooks is the head coach and he allows Russell Westbrook to just have the ball and just do whatever he wants to do and not really involve all the younger players, then this might be a problem. But, Scott Brooks is in the last year of his contract with the Wizards. So we will see what Denny's development looks like under some different tutelage.
I hear what you're doing there, and I'm getting on that in a second. But anybody that knows that I was a huge Troy Brown Jr. fan. I'm sure you heard what he said about the Bulls and the head coach interaction there. I mean, what is going on here? They literally didn't tell him how to get on the court. He was begging for knowledge, and nobody would tell him.
I mean, it's literally the same exact thing that happened to Thomas Satoransky. Not only did Troy Brown not have any direction as far as what he felt like his role was and what he could do to earn more playing time, but that's on the head coach to be able to sit down and communicate those things with the player. And so, and I go back to something else with the Wizards, how, they had a team only meeting in February where Russell Westbrook is dictating, he's telling everybody, putting them in their defined roles. That's something the head coach is supposed to do in training camp. Like, the season already over by the time they had a team meeting and they're trying to tell people to define their roles. I think that was one of the biggest complaints. I think that Wizards players under the Scott Brooks tenure has been his lack of communication with players concerning what their roles are and what their level of expectation from him was.
And zero offensive system. I mean, what is the game plan on offense? I have zero idea. It's actually really nice game plans being developed and designed in the NBA right now, and I have zero idea what the Wizards do.
Well, the Wizards' game plan is to get the ball to Russell Westbrook and let him cook and let him stack up triple doubles so that the team Twitter account can go ahead and haha and tell us that he's not washed. That's the whole plan right now. That's the only thing that seems to be working.
Sure, I had this thought the other day. It feels like the front office and Scott Brooks have never been on the same page once the whole KD to DC thing went to shambles. They constantly bringing in players that are multidimensional in how they can be used. And Scott Brooks continuously turns these players into spot up, or tries to turn them into spot up shooters. That reeks of not being on the same page to me. Like, why, if I know you're bringing in to me a 6'8", 6'9" forward who can do things with the ball off the break and go to the hoop and defend multiple positions, why would I want to turn him into something he isn't, especially in his first season in the league?
Yeah, well, I think when we talk about the disconnect between Scott Brooks and the front office, I mean it's just quite apparent when you have the front office, they're giving contract extensions to guys who aren't playing, and Scott Brooks, like Troy Brown, who had his fourth year player option as a first round draft pick picked up. But Scott Brooks is starting Jerome Robinson, who did not have his option picked up. Guys like Alex Len, who came off the street, is playing in front of, a guy who they traded for, and Mo Wagner, who they're supposed to be trying to develop. Like, it just never really kind of made sense as far as what Brooks is doing with his rotations based on what the front office kind of expects from these players with how they're doling out these contracts. And I think that Scott Brooks, when he came to DC, he had this reputation of being a developmental coach. And everybody looked at, the success of Russell Westbrook and the success of James Harden and the success of Kevin Durant. All those guys are MVPs, and quite frankly, probably would have been league MVPs without Scott Brooks. Like, so we can say that, he did a good job in helping that young team reach the NBA Finals a lot faster than a lot of people expected. But I don't think that we've really necessarily seen that development aspect of what we thought we were getting from Scott Brooks.
Tommy Shepard didn't hire Scott Brooks. So, I mean, I assume you're here to tell us today that he will be finding his very first head coach once this season is over.
You know what? That's a good question. I think he or somebody else will be finding their first head coach. But I do think that there's a very precarious situation there because of the fact that Tommy and Scott Brooks share an agent. And so I think that, for anybody who was ever expecting, Tommy Shepard to fire Scott Brooks, I don't think that was ever going to happen for multiple reasons. Them sharing an agent is one. The cost effect of, Monumental Sports having to, pay him $7 million to go away. I don't think that was ever something that, Ted Leonsis ever wanted to do. But I do think that there is a certain part of the organization where I think that there's a small percentage chance where we might be looking at them just running it back just because of how much they have committed to Russell Westbrook. And Big Pooh, you laughing, man. Like I say, it's a very small percentage chance, but at this point, I would not be surprised by anything that the Wizards do. And my reasoning behind it is because they are so committed to Russell Westbrook right now, and Ted Leonsis, he's in love with Russell Westbrook in a way that has nothing to do with any of the things that he does on the court. He just loves him as a person. He loves his family. He loves his high character, and I do believe that there's a small percentage chance that that they would like to bring back that pairing of Scott Brooks and Russell Westbrook. And you see it with, how they carry themselves as an organization, that, they're whatever excuse you can use to find why they are only winning 30% of their games this year, whether that be, the injuries to start the year, whether that be no training camp, whether that be the team having the biggest COVID outbreak in the middle of the season. If they want to find the excuses are right there for them. But if I had to wager on it, I would say that Scott Brooks would probably not be back. But there is a world in which that could happen.
Unfortunately, it's the Wizards, and I definitely see that. Troy, watching this team every game, Russell Westbrook comes with his flaws. Obviously, he can become very inefficient, turn over the ball. He's leading the league in turnovers. Shoot inexplicably quick shots sometimes. But what I see as a detriment to this team more than Russell Westbrook is, for instance, the last game, what's his name? Garrison Matthews hit 17 in the first half, on fire. Second, the middle through the third quarter, they go on the coldest streak I've ever seen the NBA team go on since I've been watching the NBA. Third quarter to basically the end of the game. Where was Garrison Matthews in that time? Like, he just, you would have thought he was injured.
Big Pooh, man, it's the fact that I can't even really say that the team went on a cold streak. It's just that the hot shooters stopped getting the ball. And so, just like you said, where was Garrison Matthews? Where was Davis Bertans? Who has come on late, and he's been hitting some shots recently. But he was MIA for the first 2 months of the season. But I think that one of the biggest flaws with Westbrook as a point guard, not as a basketball player, because I think he's a phenomenal basketball player, and he is the fact that his lack of point guard feel for not only getting people the ball in their right spots, but knowing, who's hot at the right time and who to get more involved, or knowing that certain people haven't gotten touches and to try to keep them more involved in the game. I just don't think he really has that feel as a lead guard. And that's because he really kind of has like only one pace where he just goes 1,000 miles an hour. And, that game against the Toronto Raptors, I mean, there's no excuse for them to not win that basketball game. And the only way that they could have lost was Russell Westbrook taking over and not keeping everybody involved like they had been, that led them to having a double-digit lead.
People forget Westbrook is a shooting guard.
As a point guard, you're right. No, I agree 1,000%.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, and I think that like Westbrook and I think this is funny. I'm kind of working on something right now for the City Paper based off of the kind of back and forth between Stephen A. Smith and Russell Westbrook from last week. And I think that one of the things that I had a problem with Stephen A. Smith is that he's put a lot of weight on just this championship. And like Russell Westbrook is a champion as a winner in life, regardless of whether he ever wins an NBA championship. But just winning a championship isn't the only part of winning. And I think that Russell Westbrook needs to, at some point, take a real deep evaluation of himself and realize that the things that he's doing is not leading to winning basketball. And so that he can make some minor adjustments in his game. Like, I think that there is a version of Russell Westbrook where he can look like, Dallas Mavericks, Jason Kidd, and really help some teams be able to win. But he also has to have a coach who's going to, not only, kind of nudge him to do that, but, you got to put pressure on him. But, his BFF, Scott Brooks, is not in the business of, telling Russell Westbrook what to do.
The other problem is I went back and looked at the scores for like the last 5 or 6 games. I mean, they're giving up 130 every other game. 130. And again, you can't win basketball games that way. And I look forward for the next 5 or 6 games, and there aren't a ton of winnable games in the foreseeable future either, right? They got some big time matchups. So I'll ask you, what are we doing the rest of this season? What is the point? What are we trying to accomplish here? Please, Troy, help me figure it out. And are we still required to watch these games?
We're not required to watch these games at all. I have no problem with any Wizards fan who has decided to check out on this season, just because the entertainment value has simply not been there with this team. So like this team is like, they added Russell Westbrook and they are less exciting than they were last year. Like last year's basketball team was bad, but at least they were bad in a way that was fun and exciting. And I knew like, okay, they're going to come down. They're going to jack up a lot of shots. They're going to get down by 16. They're going to get the lead back to 4, and then they're going to lose by 5. It's like that. It was kind of like a good thing, a good rhythm to have here. But this is just no fun, really. Just kind of watching them. Just kind of like they have Brad and Russ, they have the ball in their hands a lot, and the other players are just running up and down getting cardio. They're not playing basketball. They just running up and down, like just staying active, getting in real good shape. But I think that really honestly, I know for a fact that they are going to try to make the playoffs. But as long as they're not going to win any games. They don't have to do anything special to tank. They're doing it. They're doing a good enough job already.
I'm interested in what you think of Chandler Hutchinson. I believe I can speak for us all. We're intrigued by Daniel Gafford here.
Oh man, I love him.
we're intrigued by Daniel Gafford, but what do you think of Chandler Hutchinson after being able to see him play a couple games here?
I think that Chandler Hutchinson is a classic example of a lot of these first round draft picks over the NBA over the last couple of years. He's a guy who looks the role. He walks off the bus. He looks like an NBA player. You put him on the court, he can do some things, but he doesn't do anything exceptionally well. And I think that ultimately those players just kind of get lost in the sauce when it comes to NBA basketball. Like I said, he doesn't really have that one particular skill set that I can say, okay, let's try to see if we can develop this further. Or he doesn't even have that one weakness where I can say, oh, if he just corrects this weakness, he's a rotation player. He's just kind of meh to me. I think that, like I said, he looks the part. He can come in, he can shoot a little bit, he can handle a little bit. He can do a lot of things a little bit. Doesn't do anything a lot of it.
What is the timeline on Gafford?
Well, they said 10. He would be out. They would be reevaluated in 10 days. I think that was about a little over a week ago. So they should probably be reevaluating him soon. I would not expect him to return while they're on this road trip, though. So I think that they'll probably try to take it slow. And mind you, now, there's no reason to rush him back. He had a very serious ankle injury, and they got this guy under contract for the minimum for the next 2 years after this year. So this is a guy who there's no need to come out there and force him to come out here and play and possibly re-injure himself. Where this is a guy that is an investment for the future. And he already showed, within the first 5 minutes of him being a Washington Wizard, he showed that he's worth the investment. I mean, this guy came out there, alley-oop, dunk, tip, dunk, rebound, 3 blocks. I'm like, oh, okay, I like that a lot. So I wouldn't be in a rush to have him come out, like I said, because of his contract and the investment they made in him. I just wanted him to get as healthy as possible.
Now, Troy, I know Ted Leonsis said that the team would never tank, right? He stated this, but and I know it was Scott Brooks coaching, but you can't tell me that the last couple games didn't look like tank jobs to you.
Oh man,
sneakily look like tank jobs. Like
that Raptors game. Now, first of all, the Raptors tried to out tank us. When I saw the injury report at 4:00, I said, "Oh, I see what's going on here." So I see what's going on. I saw what they tried to do, but the Wizards, look, they came through in classic good #SoWizards fashion. Allowed Gary Trent. I don't know what they were doing in those last 2 possessions, but Gary Trent came through and put us out of our own misery, so that we wouldn't have to see the team gloating afterwards, and them only be 1.5 games back in Chicago for that 10th spot in the play-in tournament. And so, but I really think that Scott Brooks doesn't have any incentive to try to tank. So he's going to try to win all of these games, and they're only, it's as crazy as it sounds, they're only 2.5 games back of the Chicago Bulls for that 10th spot in the East, which would allow them to be in the play-in tournament. So they're going to try to get there. And the only thing we can do as fans and people who cover the team is to just hope that they just keep doing what they're doing, because there is no path to getting the franchise turned around with making the playoffs as the 10th seed or getting into a play-in tournament as the 8th seed. There is no path for advancement doing that.
Troy, let's do this. If Ted calls you and says, Troy, what do we got to do to get this thing turned around? What is the blueprint here? What is the plan going forward to get the franchise heading in the right direction?
Well, I mean, it takes a little bit of luck involved. Like I said, they would have to get lucky and hopefully get into the top 5 of that NBA lottery this year with a draft that is filled with at least 5 bona fide potential franchise changing players. So I think that I would say that their best bet is to get into that draft lottery. I would try to. I would definitely look at bringing in a very experienced basketball mind who could potentially be the team president over somebody like Tommy Shepard. I love Tommy, and I would love to see him stay in that role as general manager, and as an expert international scout, and as a guy who like a lot of credit to him, who he has kind of manned the ship after the Ernie Grunfeld era, and the boat has not sank under his watch. So I think that I would definitely try to bring in a basketball mind. Like I said, to be the team president. I would get a new head coach, a head coach who is much more forward thinking, not just when it comes to just the analytics movement, but somebody who is good at in-game adjustments. And I think that that's been really kind of the Wizards' biggest flaw under the Scott Brooks tenure, is the fact that he's very rigid with his decision making. Like, you can just, once he gets into, if he has a game plan, he just rolls with that game plan until it's too late. And then 3 games later, he'll be like, oh, let me change it up. Where it's just like, a guy like Nick Nurse from the Toronto Raptors, his game plan is changing every play. He said, oh, we're doing that. That didn't work. Oh, let's switch it up to this. Let's do this. Like, we just need somebody who is willing to take more risks. And I think that, like I said, a team president, a new head coach, I think that though, and getting lucky in the draft lottery, those 3 things are the things that can change this Wizards franchise around rather quickly.
Well, let's play a quick hypothetical game here, Troy. If the Wizards were to get so lucky and land in that top spot for the draft, would you be selecting Cade Cunningham or Evan Mobley?
I'd be taking Cade Cunningham because like we've seen in today's NBA that the big men, while there are good dominant big men like in Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, I don't think that Evan Mobley is the sort of like dominant playmaker that those guys are. And we can see that wing players who can come in and shoot and handle and create have a much higher chance of impacting winning early on. And Cade Cunningham, I mean, he's got all the tools. As a guy who is 6'8", he's got a very smooth handle, a very smooth jumper. He's a guy who was a winner. That Oklahoma State team that he played on this year was not very good, but he dragged them to the NCAA tournament. He had a couple of game winners this season. I think that, I think a lot of comparisons, people compare him to another DMV legend and Grant Hill. I think that's a very solid comparison as far as their skill sets, as far as size, speed, athleticism. If they get lucky enough to get that first pick, I think it would be a very obvious choice to go ahead and draft Cade Cunningham.
We'll kick the can down the road one more time. We think happens with Bradley Beal? Will he finish his career in DC?
If I had to wager on it, I say that he would not finish his career in DC. I think that while Brad has shown a level of commitment to the Wizards organization and that he wants to win here, I think that his reasoning is very twofold. Yes, he wants to win here, but I think that there is a very obvious and not very much talked about financial incentive for him to continue to get another contract with the Wizards. So I think that, he's saying all the right things right now. I think that once he gets his next contract, whether that be a supermax or not, either way, whether he becomes all NBA and is eligible for that supermax or not, he's going to get a very, very lucrative contract offer from the Washington Wizards. And really the reason why he has the opt-out at the next year is because he will be a 10-year vested veteran in the NBA. And so because he would have 10 years of experience, he would be eligible to make more money. And so I think that once he gets that contract, I think that then you will start to see a little bit of a tone change in, his commitment to DC for life. So I think that ultimately, and like I said, and another aspect of this is that if they were to bring in, somebody, maybe not even Masai, but somebody else, a smart GM is going to come in and they're going to look at all of their options. And the first thing they're going to have to look at is fielding Bradley Beal trade offers. So if I had to bet, I don't think that he finishes his career as a Wizard.
Now, Troy, I haven't been on Twitter really in the past 2 days, but I happened to take a quick peek before we jumped on today. And I saw a brief conversation you had with one of our friends. So I'm going to ask this question. What's going on with the Celtics?
shout out to my guy, Angry Man. Hey, look, that's actually how you and I connected. You and I were hanging out at your concert in DC. Yep. Before the pandemic hit. I remember, shout out to the Howard Theater. But the Celtics, man, look, Danny Ainge, he's getting a real pass from a lot of national media members for what has happened to the Boston Celtics, because he had a treasure trove of draft picks and assets, and really those things have turned into a lot of nothing. And it's really sad to think about. Like, I mean, they had draft picks. They had, picks they were supposed to be getting from Sacramento, picks they're supposed to be getting from Brooklyn, picks from Memphis. Every last one of those picks, they don't have they still have their core of players, and they've drafted all these players over the last 3 seasons, and none of them is contributing. Like literally. So I mean, I think that he has to have some level of culpability there. And I would also look at, like, I'm gonna tell you this right now. There's a very obvious Bradley Beal destination. If he ever wants to get traded, his BFF in life, Jason Tatum, is a Boston Celtic. And if it comes down to it, look, I don't even need any assets attached to Jaylen Brown. Just send him down here to DC. We don't even need no draft picks. That's good. Look, give me a guy young, strong, and under contract for the next 5 years.
Because to your point, it's a cautionary tale of trading Bradley Beal, right? Because first of all, they're probably low draft picks, and if you don't hit on them, then really you were just trying to draft a guy that would become Bradley Beal anyway.
Exactly. Give me Jaylen Brown, man. That guy's already, like I said, big, strong player. He plays hard, plays a two-way guy. His shooting percentages go up every year, and he competes on a high level. Like I said, I definitely think that Beal is better than Brown right now. But if push came to shove, I would take Jaylen Brown back in a potential Bradley Beal trade. But the Boston Celtics, man, they to keep it very simple, they blew it. That's it. Their window has come. They had a 2-year championship window where they could have potentially made the NBA Finals, and I'm going to say this very confidently. That's over. They are not going to win the championship in the next 2 to 3 years. That window is closed.
I'm interested. Who do you, with Ball being injured, who do you see in the front running for Rookie of the Year now, or does he still win it? Even if he doesn't
I don't
retire?
think he's only played 41 games this year. I don't think he's going to get to the. I think the NBA voters they hold that how many games you play in really high regard. I'm gonna say that right now the rookie power rankings, I would have to go with my shout out to my fifth cousin Tyrese Haliburton. I think that he's probably in the lead for Rookie of the Year. He really has produced the most. He's most consistent. Like, he's shooting well from the floor, shooting 40% from 3-point range, and he's playing on a team. The Sacramento Kings are quiet as it's kept. They're right there competing with the New Orleanses and the Golden States and the Memphises for those for that play-in spot in the Western Conference. I think a guy like Anthony Edwards, what he has been able to show over the last couple of weeks. He's taking a lot of shots right now, but at the end of the day, I think that Rookie of the Year, it's not like MVP. The raw numbers kind of matter. So when you look at it, you say, oh, for the last 2 months of the season, he's averaging 20 points. I think that a lot of voters will take that into consideration. And so, and honestly, I think it's probably just a 3-man race between those guys, between LaMelo Ball, Tyrese Haliburton, and Anthony Edwards for the Rookie of the Year.
Right, this might already be out there and I just hadn't seen it. Is this play-in tournament like a thing that's going to stick, or are they trying to see how it works this year with it?
I do believe that this will stick around. I'm not sure whether they I know that they're getting ready to have a new collective bargaining agreement coming up, and I think that this is something that that is both pro. The players are pro, and that the owners are both for. Moving forward. Number one, it's an extra revenue stream. And number two, I think that that they want to drum up a lot of interest in these kind of lower level seeding. I think that everybody kind of realizes that in the NBA you have those top teams who are, every year there's only going to be 4 or 5 people who are realistically, title contenders. And so I think they are trying to drum up more interest. There was talks of having the mid-season tournament, kind of like how the Euro, the soccer leagues do. And I think that this is a good compromise for that, because you get to see some of these play-in teams who have younger stars. You get to see like a Ja Morant or a LaMelo Ball or a Tyrese Haliburton. These younger guys or Trey Young with the Atlanta Hawks. We'll get to see some of these younger stars play in meaningful games and kind of drum up a bit of excitement for the middling teams.
Troy, I want to ask your opinion on, I'm seeing this year, and I don't know if this just was an outlier because of the COVID season that college players were granted, but this year we're seeing a tremendous amount of players in the transfer portal. It's almost like free agency in college. And so you have this new unique thing with the transfer portal where they're trying to, even past the season, they're trying to relax the transfer rules a little. And then you have the G League option where I haven't really watched them, so I don't know how successful that team was, the Ignite, but you have that option. Do you see a big change coming with more players trying to get on that G League team for young players?
Yeah. So I got a chance to really watch the G League team over the course of the G League season, and I mean that for Jalen Green and for Jonathan Kuminga, I thought that was the smartest move that those two players could have made. They got paid $500,000. They only played I think about 20 games this year. They were able to have real NBA coaching, running real NBA plays. They had NBA veterans, such as shout out DMV legend Jarrett Jack, who was the point guard of that team full of young guys. And I think that, but I think everybody's path is different. So for the guys like Jalen Green and Kuminga, who were always kind of highly touted lottery prospects, I think that going to the G League was a perfect decision for them to go make money, not have to, deal with the confusion that comes around playing NCAA basketball. But I do believe that there are other players who greatly benefit from going to college and developing and kind of being the man because a lot of times these players come in as freshmen, they don't play, if they stay in the program and don't transfer, then eventually they do develop and become good players. As far as the transfers go, I love it, because when you have all these coaches leave, they go from job to job as much as it matters. They get buyouts, huge buyouts from the from these colleges, and they can just have free reign to do whatever it is they want to do. But all of a sudden, the players have to be subjected to all these different transfer rules and sitting out and doing all this stuff. Man, jump into that portal and try to advertise your services to all of these schools across the country and go for the option that best fits you. So an example I will give is shout out to my fellow Gonzaga College High School alum, Chris Lights, who was down at the University of Miami, and he entered the transfer portal very early. Miami hasn't been as good the last few years. They weren't playing in the NCAA tournament. He thought about coming home to go to Georgetown, but he just announced today that he's transferring to Arkansas. And he watched Arkansas play in the NCAA tournament. He's like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to go play on the biggest stages. I want to play and they'll get my one shining moment. And so he should have that right as a player to not be stuck at a place where he knows that he's not going to win.
Yeah, I just saw the big man from Georgetown. I can't pronounce his name, but Wahab. Yeah, he transferred to Maryland.
Man, you don't even have to move, really.
Don't even, just going a couple minutes up the highway.
And then gave Turge a shiny new extension too.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, but hey, I like it. Like I said, every prospect is different, but I like what the G League did, and I think that once, we see Jalen Green and Kuminga go in the top 5 of this draft, I think that other future prospects will definitely sit down and consider that as an option. And it'll obviously be a lot easier and better, with them not having to be in a G League bubble and, what they had to endure this year because of all the COVID protocols.
Wasn't it a third guy on that team?
Yeah, there was. He didn't really play that much, but I still believe that he will get drafted as well, though.
Okay. Well, Troy, I thought Doug had another question. See, he
No.
We thank you as always for coming, showing up, showing out. Let the people know where they can find you as always and what you're working on.
Okay. So you can always find me on Twitter at Troy Haliburton, Halibur. Like I said, I got something. I wrote something last week in the city paper about the middling Wizards and what they really need to do to kind of get out of this. But like I said, I'm working on something right now that's going to come out later in the week, kind of analyzing Russell Westbrook as a polarizing figure, not only in the NBA, but just in professional sports in general, and what his impact has meant for the Wizards, both good and bad. So be on the lookout for that coming out in the Washington City paper coming up soon. Shout out to my guy, Kellen Song, the best editor in the world. He wrote a nice piece on the Washington Nationals comeback victory on the bat of Juan Soto walk-off yesterday. So you should all go check that out in the city paper as well.
It was 7-5 before we started this today. I'm not sure what the final was, but
yeah, look, they just hung up that banner because last season didn't exist to me anyway. So look, I'm ready to get back. To me, we still defending champs right now. So
no doubt. Thanks for coming on. I don't know how we got 40 minutes of entertaining Wizards talk, but yet here we are. I appreciate it.
And look, it's crazy the fact that we're just, as Wizards fans, we're just gluttons for pain. So I know that people are going to watch this. People are going to talk about it. They're going to end up with long Twitter threads where I check out after the third tweet. But it'll still be going for 48 hours later. It's crazy, but the Wizards do drum up some very interesting conversation.
I was like, we'll be suffering as a family as they probably lose to the Orlando Magic tonight.
No, suffering or celebrating. Mind you, like I said, Big Pooh.
I'll be celebrating. Man.
If they just do if the season ends right now, that would be the best thing that could happen. End up with the 4th highest odds in the draft lottery. It's in the season right now.
I didn't want to say, I had a bittersweet. It was like, no, yes.
Yes, I want to see the team win, and I hate, that they lost on a buzzer beater, and I hate the way they lost with those last 3 possessions. Just frustrating basketball. But then I remembered that, we would have been a game and a half out of the 10th spot, and we'd have they're teetering a very thin line right now. So a couple more losses. Bradley Beal, go ahead, tell Bradley Beal, go ahead, go on home, rest that hip up for the rest of the year. Look, it doesn't take a lot. Let Scott Brooks finish out his job. There's an easy path to Kay Cunningham right here.
Compete, but lose. That's it. That's the motto. Compete, but lose.
I like it.
All right, Troy, man. Thank you once again, man. You have a good day, brother.
I appreciate it, you guys, man. Blessings, man. Thank you. Yeah, that was perfect, man.